will ensure that all Singaporeans can afford the premiums and will remain covered by MediShield Life for life.
Breaking news this evening, MediShield Life premiums are going up next year with better benefits. The details coming up.
Singapore Airlines says flights to nowhere are a no-go but gives the go-ahead to convert a jumbo jet into a restaurant.
Loyal, brave, and true. It is my duty to protect my family.
Losing the plot, how Disney's Mulan became one of the year's most controversial movies.
Hello, you're watching The Big Story, coming to you live from the Straits Times newsroom. I'm Haryanto Diman.
And I'm Olivia Quay. You can subscribe to the Straits Times channel so you never miss a single episode.
This just in, MediShield Life premiums will rise next year by as much as 35% due to higher healthcare costs and to pay for better benefits.
This will be the first increase in premiums since the compulsory health insurance plan launched 5 years ago. While higher premiums will allow for better benefits such as higher coverage for subacute care at community hospitals and for outpatient radiotherapy, higher annual claim limit of $150,000 from the current $100,000, higher claim for daily ward charges for the first 2 days of hospitalization, and no more exclusions. MediShield Life will in future also cover treatment for attempted suicide, self-injury, substance abuse and alcoholism.
Health Minister Gan Kim Yong says the government will ensure that premiums remain affordable and no Singaporean will lose MediShield Life coverage because of financial difficulties.
As in previous years, we will continue to provide premium subsidies for Singaporeans based on their means, additional subsidies for Merdeka Generation and Pioneer Generation seniors, as well as additional premium support for the needy. We also recognize that the COVID-19 pandemic has affected many Singaporeans. The government will provide a one-off COVID-19 subsidy to help Singaporeans with their premiums over the next 2 years. With these support measures, the net premium increases for all Singaporeans will be capped up to about 10% in the first year. Premiums will also continue to be fully payable through MediSave.
Senior Health Correspondent Salma Khalik is here to help us digest this. Salma, welcome back to the show. This is the first major review of the scheme since its launch back in November 2015. Greater coverage, but premiums simultaneously rising up by about 35%. Are these changes necessary?
Okay, in the first place, this is not exactly the first review. It is the first review when it comes to premiums because the government had promised a moratorium, a 5-year moratorium on premium increase. But last year, the benefits were actually tweaked, and that tweak benefited about 90,000 people. And well, okay, it's a little bit of a plug for us, but it was because of some Straits Times stories that we found out that instead of MediShield Life covering 90% of subsidized patients, it had fallen down to 80%. And it came up in Parliament, and as a result of that, the benefits were tweaked.
Well, we know, Salma, that you had something to do with that as well. So moving on, which group of the population will stand to benefit the most from these changes?
Well, the ones who benefit will be the ones who currently have bills that are hitting the claims limit. Like, for example, somebody who has been to hospital several times or has been in hospital for a very long time, and the bill exceeds 100,000 a year. Anything above that, the person has to pay on his own because that is the annual limit. But with it going up to 150,000, a lot more people will then benefit. I understand last year about 100 people hit the $100,000 limit. Then there are others, like, for example, someone who has a heart attack and then needs recovery time and is sent from a general hospital to a community hospital. Right now, the community hospital claims are pegged on rehabilitation, which is about 20% lower than subacute care, which a heart patient will need. So therefore, the person is not getting as much coverage as he needs.
Right. Let's talk about the group of people with additional coverage. How will these latest changes affect those with integrated shield plans?
Right, that's about 70% of people actually, so more than 2 in 3. It does not directly affect them, but any change to MediShield Life would affect the IPs in that the IPs incorporate MediShield Life. I actually had talked to the Life Insurance Association people, and they're a little bit concerned about the proposal to drop claims from private hospitals from 35% of the bill to 25% of the bill. The reason is because private hospital bills are very big, and 35% of the bill is way above the actual cost of a subsidized bill for the same procedure. But this will mean that MediShield Life will pay the insurers a lot less in claims. So the insurers who have to pay their policyholders according to their own plans will have to fork out more money. And to fork out more money means that they probably will have to raise premiums. So it's a rollover effect. We will have to wait to see exactly how severe the impact is.
Right. Well, how about subsidized patients, Salma? What do these changes mean for them?
Well, these changes are primarily for subsidized patients. So with the change, it will again guarantee that 90% of subsidized patients will have 90% of their bills covered by insurance once you have taken the deductible and the co-payment into account.
Right, well, thank you so much for clarifying all of this for us, Salma. We've been speaking to the Straits Times' senior health correspondent, Salma Khalik, on the latest changes to MediShield Life.
This includes premiums rising by as much as 35% next year. Now, straitstimes.com has all the details, and you can also read all about it in tomorrow's paper.
An update on the COVID-19 situation. In Singapore, 27 new cases were confirmed today. They included one community case, a work pass holder.
There were also 9 imported cases who have been placed on stay-home notices upon their arrival in Singapore. More details will be released tonight.
In other news, Singapore Airlines no longer has plans for flights to nowhere. Instead, SIA said today that the public can still experience the airline service on the ground through 3 other initiatives that will be launched in the coming weeks. These are lunch on board an Airbus A380 jumbo jet, a tour of SIA's training facilities, and home delivery of meals from its first and business class menus. SIA said it developed these experiences after conducting a market study and review which looked into factors like environmental implications and financial viability.
Meanwhile, Singapore is looking into ways to facilitate essential business and official travel to Sichuan province in southwestern China in a bid to kickstart business exchanges. Trade between Sichuan and Singapore reached $1.71 billion between January and August this year, a jump of more than 20% compared with a year ago. Singapore is also Sichuan's largest foreign investor so far. Now, if you recall, fast lane between Singapore and 6 Chinese provinces and cities were previously set up in June.
32 diners have been fined $300 each for flouting COVID-19 rules at F&B outlets. Their offences included not wearing a mask promptly after eating or drinking, intermingling between tables, as well as sitting in groups of more than 5 diners. In addition, 8 more F&B outlets have been ordered to close. Some common breaches found were the sale and consumption of alcohol after 10:30 p.m. and diners across multiple tables intermingling with one another and sharing food. 14 outlets were also fined. 13 were fined $1,000 and 1, a repeat offender, fined $2,000.
According to a Singapore Management University survey, commuters were happy with the increased cleaning on trains and buses during the circuit breaker, as well as the drop in passengers in the same period. The online survey of about 7,500 people showed substantial increases in commuter satisfaction scores from May to July compared with the same period last year. In June and July, though, after the circuit breaker, the scores fell to the same levels as 2019. With many returning to work and public transport becoming more crowded, commuters are calling for higher service frequency and limiting the number of passengers per cabin.
Well, making global headlines today, the World Health Organization said a deal has been struck to enable poorer nations to get quick and reliable COVID-19 test kits priced at a maximum of $5 each. This will allow countries to expand testing, especially in hard-to-reach areas that don't have lab facilities.
Volume guarantee agreements have been developed between two manufacturers and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which will make 120 million of these new highly portable and easy-to-use rapid diagnostic tests available over a period of 6 months.
Meanwhile, thousands of students at universities across the UK are in self-isolation following an outbreak of COVID-19 cases since the school term started a few weeks ago. Some have stuck posters and even beer cans on windows to communicate with the outside world. About 40 universities have so far reported infections.
And poverty in East Asia and the Pacific could increase this year for the first time in 20 years as the pandemic takes its toll on economies. Based on a new study by the World Bank, up to 38 million more people in the region will live in poverty this year. The report covers developing countries including China, Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines and Thailand.
You know, Olivia, new movies are few and far between these days, especially with the COVID-19 pandemic. But one film that's been garnering attention before and after its release is Disney's Mulan remake.
Yeah, of course. Well, the attention is mostly for negative reasons like a problematic plot and external political factors. Mulan did well in Singapore, though, making just over $1 million in its opening weekend. It's the highest opening weekend take of any film here this year so far.
But it was received poorly in the Chinese box office, making only 23.2 million US dollars when it opened on September 11th. China Bureau Chief for the Straits Times, Tan Dawn Wei, has written a piece about the movie's missteps, and she joins us now. Hi Dawn, the Mulan remake took 5 years to put together. The process included seeking advice from Chinese consultants, even getting the script approved by Chinese authorities and casting popular mainland actors. Now, these factors point to Disney's efforts to portray Chinese culture in an authentic way in what's essentially a Western movie in order to attract a Chinese audience. So what went wrong there?
Well, what went wrong was that, even though Disney had hoped that Mulan would resonate with Chinese moviegoers, it hired a creative team that was exclusively Western, from the director, the screenwriters, to the production designer and the costume designer. So watching the movie, it suddenly didn't look like that these people did enough homework, or perhaps Disney thought it could get away with taking a lot of artistic liberties with the movie. But first off, this isn't just any story. Hua Mulan is one of China's greatest heroines, and the story of how she pretended to be a man and took her father's place when he was conscripted into the army is one of the most beloved legends in China. And so Chinese moviegoers have a lot of affection for her, and there have been many versions of the Hua Mulan tale, both on the big screen and the small screen. And when it came to this latest version, the Chinese audience were quick to pick out the historical and the cultural inaccuracies in the movie and accuse Disney of cultural appropriation. So for instance, this concept of qi, which kept coming up in the movie, Mulan's qi is apparently very powerful, but as her father told her, qi is for warriors, not for daughters, so she needs to hide it. But anyone with any rudimentary understanding of Chinese philosophy or even traditional medicine will know that Ti, not qi, is the vital energy that exists in all of us, not something that will give you superpowers.
Well, Dawn, in your article, you also wrote that last year, only 2 Hollywood movies made it to China's 10 top grossing films of 2019. Why are the Chinese preferring their own movies to imports?
Yeah, the 2 movies were Avengers Endgame, which came in at number 3, and Fast and Furious Presents Hobbs and Shaw, which was in 10th place. The rest of the movies were all Chinese, and out of that list, 3 have already gone on to be among the top 10 highest grossing films of all time in China. So you can see that there is this significant shift in appetite for homegrown productions. In fact, just a few weeks before Mulan was released in China, a Chinese film called The 800 had hit the theaters, and in just 40 days has already earned 3 billion yuan or $600 million. And it is now become the top grossing film in the world for this year. There is some commonality among these top-selling films, and that is, they tend to be patriotic or nationalistic films, quite epic in scale, and have very high production values. You might have heard of The Wandering Earth, 流浪地球, or Wolf Warrior 2, 战狼2, or My People, My Country, 我和我的祖国. And their release would be timed for the big holidays, either Chinese New Year or a national day. Some analysts have said that there is now a greater appetite in China for these patriotic films because nationalistic sentiments are rising in the country as it faces hostility from the US and other nations. But the thing is, Chinese films have, quite simply become a lot more sophisticated and boast very high production values. And there's a lot more emphasis on not just artistic merit, but also making sure that it has great entertainment value as well. And more importantly, the subject matter and the actors are familiar to the Chinese audience.
Right. So that said, do you think then the Mulan backlash will further put off their taste for imported films? And what should Hollywood do to get the Chinese to watch their movies?
The Chinese film industry is constantly looking to Hollywood to learn how to make better movies, how to tell more compelling stories, and how to up its CGI game. And the Chinese audience still, love a good sort of heart-stopping car chase, or an army of superheroes, saving the planet, or, just a big, loud blockbuster loaded with lots of CGI or computer-generated imagery. Because if you look at the top 50 movies of all time in China, you will see that it's the Avengers series, the Transformers series, Fast and Furious series, Spider-Man, Jurassic World, Avatar. So if Hollywood wants a piece of this very lucrative pie that is the China market, then Mulan is not the answer. It should simply just stick to what it does best, which is the blockbusters.
Right. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show, Dawn. It's a fascinating topic, and indeed we have been engaged in a heated debate over Mulan in the newsroom. Well, that was Tan Dawn Wei, the Straits Times' China bureau chief based in Beijing.
You can read her story at straitstimes.com. Now, if you're watching us on YouTube, we've put a link to that in the description below.
Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel by hitting the red button below and visit straitstimes.com for more news and videos.
So that's it. I'm Haryanto Diman with Olivia Quay. Join us tomorrow for more stories on A Big Story.